15 months ago, a judgment was made by the Communist Party to switch their efforts from the black community to the Latin community. They felt that the black people were not going to hold still and be exploited by communists, and so they concentrated on the Mexican-American community. They are now becoming quite sophisticated. In this demonstration against Parker Center of last Saturday, they joined with the Peace Action Council, a group of Anglo militants, and the Peace Action Council produced over 30,000 leaflets that were passed out to Mexican-American youths throughout Southern California. Now there's another demonstration scheduled against this department and the Sheriff's Office on the 31st of January. And this whole thing, there's no claim on their part that there's widespread police brutality. You see, the only claim is that we've been too effective in dealing with the Brown Berets, and they took us into court to try to stop us from making arrests. And so there's no allegation of police brutality in the city of Los Angeles against the Los Angeles Police Department of any substantial magnitude. This is strictly a fight of an organization to be able to do its illegal activities within the city of Los Angeles, and we don't intend to tolerate it.
Widespread police brutality on the east side, I would presume that Dr. Carrion would know about that, Dr. Carrion of the Police Commission. Has he communicated any such evidence to you?
Occasionally, Dr. Carrion gets telephone calls, not even letters, you know, and we rapidly get on top of things. As approved, and we will implement with the approval of the mayor and the city council a decentralization program where there will be a deputy chief, for example, in the San Fernando Valley and the other areas of the city. And we will eliminate the functional organization and put in a line organization where to coordinate detectives and traffic and patrol and community relations and everything. Instead of having to go up to a deputy chief downtown in the glass house, it will only have to go up to a deputy chief sitting out in the valley who will have 5 divisions. And so this is more power to the local commander to do his job. It's in keeping with my belief that policing should be very close to the people, and it's directly contrary to the Los Angeles Times recommending yesterday that we take police work farther away from the people by consolidating the sheriff's office and the police department. And So we believe in making it closer. I think some of the best jobs of police work are done by the smaller departments who are closer and more sensitive to their people.
In what way would the people who live in these various communities actually feel themselves?
Well, they would know, for example, right now in, let's say, Southwest Division, or West Los Angeles, let's say Southwest Division, you want to complain about traffic. You have to complain to a traffic deputy chief here. You want to complain about detectives. You complain to a detective deputy chief here. You want to complain about patrol. You complain to a patrol deputy chief. And then as somebody over him, an assistant chief, has to coordinate all of this. Well, this pushes the coordination and the command level decision making right down above the precinct or division level. And in each division, then we will have a Captain 3 who will have the total responsibility for everyone in that division. This is long overdue. Business and industry went to this 40 years ago. This really isn't a new idea. We stole it from the things that General Electric and General Motors did in the 20s.
Chief, also carry that out.
We'll gradually do it and pick up the problems and resolve them and debug it and put the system in.
Chief, have we been able to find out whether or not any of these communists actually
Victimize and manipulate groups that are in the greatest need of better education, better employment, and better social opportunities?
Do you plan to press charges if you find that evidence?
We certainly will.
Chief, you say America has lost the ability to protect itself. Would you
Advocate it, you have to engage in a conspiracy, and then you have to engage in one overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy that, if it weren't stopped, would culminate, you see, in the overthrow of the government. So it's legally impossible to get at these Bolsheviks before they actually have something happen. Like all these 100-foot drop back there, you know, there could have been 50 of them killed in that construction site. But you can't stop it normally until after times. I would advocate 2 amendments to the Constitution. One would be that the First Amendment right does not include the right to advocate the violent overthrow of the government, and 2, that the Fourth Amendment does not cover the right to possess hard narcotics. And if we had those 2 amendments to the Constitution, I think America could survive. But this morning we have what first came out looking like a murder that turns out to be a double overdose of hard narcotics. Now this is happening, over 250 kids of a median age, average age of 17 years, killed in this county last year by the use of dope. But through the perverted interpretation of the Fourth Amendment, it makes it extremely difficult for society to protect its young against dope.
Chief, I wanted to ask you about communism.
There's all these other self-acknowledged avowed communist organizations are merely detonators for the main Communist Party. They're used and exploited and egged on, and they're the prison fodder, they're the cannon fodder. PLP is important for the citizens of this city and the residents of this area, and particularly for parents of Mexican-American ancestry, to know something about the trend of the demonstration that took place here in front of Parker Center last Saturday. A very interesting man is Pierre Mandel, who was born in Russia, who was active in the Communist Party in France, and was active in the Communist Party in Chicago when he came to this country, and is active in the Communist Party in Southern California. Pardon? Oh, I see, okay. All right, but I'll just go rather briefly. Another gentleman also identified here, Sam Kushner, and Rose Chernin Kuznets, again identified in government records. And we find these people meeting and mixing with the young Mexican-American youths, and Ralph Konigsberg, Florence Kushner, a man and wife team, and a very interesting gentleman here, Mr. Ben Dobbs. Mr. Ben Dobbs was convicted under the Smith Act, and the U.S. Supreme Court, when they threw out the Smith Act, in effect let him out, but he was to be in. Now here you see them meeting and interacting with the young Mexican Americans down here in the demonstration, and yet not a single one of these people got into any of the action that resulted in the 42 arrests. And Mr. Sanchez, the head of the Brown Berets, and if they don't watch it, their young men will be exploited on January 31st, 1971. Brown Berets were formed, and some of the people who...
Another subject that is related to it in many ways, I'd like your comment on the report which has been released on the UCLA difficulties in 1970, where the police department is being blamed for practically everything.
Well, that report was sent to us by one of the vice chancellors. I have met with Chancellor Young prior to his release of the report, and I think it's a very unfortunate report. It fails to identify who the complainants are. So we had this several months ago, and the commission, which was constituted by the chancellor, refuses to give us any lead on who makes what statement. So it's one of those unfortunate broadsides that cannot be investigated because you don't know who is making the allegation. And I think it's very unfortunate that it's released at this time when there's peace on the campus at UCLA, when there's generally peace on the college campuses. It was a judgment of the commission not to release it. It's a very unscholarly document if you've read it. It paints with a rather broad brush. It's rather dirty tactics, and I don't think Chancellor Young is any happier with it than I am, although he didn't say that. But I would think that things like that, after we've had peace on the campus since May, is a rather foolish thing and an attempt on someone's part to provoke difficulty, either for the chancellor in the university system or the police department. One of his activities, we contacted Father Luce last week, one of our men, trying to reach David Sanchez to head off their so-called bloodbath, and Father Luce was unable to produce David Sanchez. Father Luce was before the grand jury in the closure of the school cases a couple of years ago. I suspect he wasn't indicted because his collar was turned around backwards. And again, this shows the victimization of the Mexican American community by white subversive forces that won't go out and do the dirty work themselves. I think it's about time we get down to talking about some of these fundamentals.
Chief Davis, can you explain?
President of a ghetto or a barrio and being economically deprived, that many of them and much of the money for the 30,000 leaflets, for example, in all probability comes from people who have achieved socio-economic success, but who have a mission to bring off the revolution. And so